as chumras adavar abilti ratzu, a kapara that nullifies the severity that is unwanted. In other words, if chas v'shalom, a person does something wrong, does something against the will of Hashem, so then he needs to have an atonement, but that atonement, it only sometimes will help partially. It will remove the severity of the offense, but some type of remnant of the offense, some type of mark and impression of the offense still remains. Base, another level in kapara. Kapara mvatelos is in kuloi, an atonement that nullifies the matter in its entirety. She'ein maskirin loy davar v'chatzi davar, like the expression is, when the day of judgment comes, the matter is not mentioned, or even a half of the matter is not mentioned, or even partial of the matter is not mentioned. It's completely wiped away. Gimel, shleimus hakapara, the third level is the ultimate kapara. Like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, she'yiyah l'rotzen lifnei Hashem, that he should be accepted before Hashem, and merutza v'chaviv l'fanav, wanted and beloved Yisbarach, l'chaper l'fnei Hashem, liyos nachas roch, l'koinoi, to be pleasant for his makers. V'shmevayrad morazok. Alter Rebbe explains in the Ger Satshuva. Words, not there. Even when a person, an offense, and he does tshuva, it's possible that there's still a bad taste. Let's say a person had offended someone and they asked forgiveness sincerely, and the friend forgave them, but still there's a bit of a discomfort, there's a bit of a not smoothness and roughness to the relationship. The ultimate state of kapara is to completely wipe it away in such a type of way that he's just as much beloved by Hashem and just as much smooth out his relationship by Hashem as before the sin. Now, the Rebbe used this term kapara and apply it concerning the expression that the Gemara uses concerning the birth of Moshe Rabeinu in the month of Adar. Concerning our matter, Leidas Moshe b'Shiva b'Adar, the birth of Moshe on the 7th of Adar, hamechaperes ala inyan abilti ratzui, that wipes away the unwanted, untoward matter. Hakosher in p'tirasei shel Haman, that's connected with the Hakosher in p'tirasei shel Moshe, that's connected with the passing of Moshe, which is really what is connected with the passing of Moshe, what in a way like resulted from the fact that the 7th of Adar was the passing of Moshe, Gezeras Haman. Haman had some legs to stand on for his decree because the 7th of Adar was the passing of the Rabeinu. Even the Tachlis HaShleimus Shabinyan HaKapara. So the birth of Moshe was in the ultimate perfection of Kapara, meaning not only does the severity of the decree of Haman cease to be, like the expression of Esther the queen, if we would have been sold for slaves and maidservants, instead of the most severe decree, to destroy, to be killed, to completely make lost, I would have been silent. In other words, like this, the severity of the decree was the fact that the Jewish people were supposed to be killed. There could have been a lesser form of the decree. It could have been that they would have been slaves and servants. And in that case, Esther said, I would have stood back. So if it would have been just the first level of kapara that we said before, the first level of wiping away, then it would have just removed the severity of the decree, that the Jewish people would not be killed, but they could be served, they could end up as servants and slaves. So we said that's not what occurred. But the entire decree was removed. The lawyer actually only is the decree entirely nullified, that it shouldn't even be a state of being sold for servants and slaves and maidservants, and it would have remained the situation and state the way the Yidden were beforehand. The Yidden were citizens of Achashverosh, they weren't servants, they weren't slaves, and they would have remained that way. So that would have been like the second stage of the kapara. The second stage of the kapara would have been, they would have gone back to the status quo. But it's not what happened, because we had this third level of kapara. Even more so, it was transformed to them mourning, or from sadness to joy, and from mourning to a celebration, to a holiday. And the way of the advantage and the power of light out of darkness that we always bring down in Chassidus, that light is much more powerful when shining out of the darkness than shining in the light. So this darkness that preceded the miracle of Purim gave forth a powerful light afterwards. Instead of the most severe decree of the destruction of the Jewish people, it was added another holiday by the Yidden again. So instead of being a sad time, it didn't go back to being a normal time, but it went to be a joyous time. So that is the kapara of Moshe Rabeinu's birth. That the kapara of his birth, that wiped away any negative results of his passing, was such that it wiped away so much the status of anything negative that transformed it to a Yom Tov. And not only did it transform it to a Yom Tov, like any other Yom Tov itself, it's way beyond that gufam, and that this itself, simcha gedoyla v'nailas yoser, a greater joy and a more higher joy, misimchas kol shar hamoyadim, than the joy of all other Yom Tovim. Ad li'ilu shebe'ein aroich, to an elevation, an ascent that's incomparable to anything else. Simcha shalamayla medida v'agbala, joy that's beyond measure and beyond boundary. Ad loyada, that's the idea that it says that in Purim one needs to become so joyous till they do not know, meaning they are reaching a level of beyond rational reasoning. It's explained, just like Haman was trying to reach that level of beyond rational reasoning that we spoke about before, that he had the girdle, which girdle is beyond the lotteries, beyond understanding and rational intellect. So too the joy that's expressed is not just any joy, but a joy that's beyond understanding and reason and so on, surpassing any other joy of any other Yom Tov. So it's the ultimate type of kapara, it's the ultimate type of level that we reach through the birth of Moshe that totally undoes any type of negativity that can result from the passing of Moshe. Ad kedei kach, to such degree, sheyimei Purim ha'elu, that says the end of the Megillah, these days of Purim, lo yavru b'tech Yehudim, will not pass from amongst the Yidden, v'zichram, and their memory. Lo Yosef Mezarim, will not cease from their offspring. What does that mean? It will not pass and will not cease. Like it's explained in the Midrash from Chazal, shafili ma'is HaMashiach, even for the days of Mashiach. Even when all the other Yom Tovim will cease, the days of Purim will not cease. Like it's also brought on the Rambam at the end of the halachas of Megillah. So we see how much more powerful Purim the Purim is than all the other Yom Tovim. The kapara of Moshe Rabeinu is of such of his birth is such a high and great level that it attains something that other Yom Tovim do not have. So now, going back to what it has to do with the entire month of Adar. That's wonderful, it's great, Purim, but that's the day of Purim. But what is it about the entire month that we're trying to derive from this? Oizdal, the Nimtza comes out. Sheshiva ba'adar hu yom shepoil al chodesh adar kulei. That the 7th of Adar is a day that affects the entire month. Misas Moshe Hoisa b'Shiva ba'Adar. When Moshe Rabeinu passed away, what was the 7th of Adar? V'hadiuk al yom zedavke. And it's very exact that it was this particular day. Like it says, when Moshe Rabeinu was going to pass away, it says, he said, Ben Meya v'esrim shana noicha yom. Today I am 120 years old. Why does it say today I am 20 years old? Rashi, and Rashi explains, Shutishal Mikra, the simple, Rashi is the simple, the Ben Chomish is explaining it for a 5-year-old that begins to learn Chomish. Hayoim Malu Yamayish Noisai. Today my days and years were completed. In this day I was born, and in this day I will pass. Now, that was exactly the 7th of Adar, not the 8th of Adar, not the 5th of Adar, not the 13th or 14th of Adar, or the 15th of Adar. Who, as opposed to the day that Haman established for fulfilling his scheme, was b'shloisha asar lechodesh name asar u'chodesh Adar. It was going to be on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. In other words, counting from Nisan being the first month, so Adar is the 12th. What does this mean? Haman's plot was loy b'shiva ba'Adar, not on the 7th of Adar, ki im b'yud gimel, rather on the 3rd of Adar. What do we see from this? Very interesting point that Rebbe brings out. It says, by the way, the Rebbe says in the brackets, therefore, those that explain, Sharaka Polos Apur Michodesh Lachodesh, also biyadiv Leim Negel Yom B'Chodesh, Yudgim B'Adar. There are those that say that his success in picking the date was only for the month, but not for the day of the month. Anyway, that's a side thing. The main thing is, second paragraph, if so, what was the great joy of Haman when he saw that the lottery fell out in the month of Adar, Shemez by Moshe, that Moshe passed away? What's the connection between the passing of Moshe on the 7th of Adar to the decree that Haman decided to kill out the Jewish people? At the end, the Jewish people killed out their enemies, and they celebrated the day after on the 14th. But sure, I'll say, is all views, Haman, even according to Haman's understanding. Even Haman realized this. The 7th of Adar affects the entire month. Both concerning the passing of Moshe. That's why Haman was very joyous, because he said the lottery fell out in the month that Moshe Rabeinu passed away. He wasn't concerned that it didn't come out on the exact day of Moshe Rabbeinu's yahrzeit. If it was in the same month, that's enough for him. And on the other hand, he didn't realize the counterbalance concerning the birth of Moshe, that Chazal said, the very birth itself is wipe away and wash away the passing. Someone questioned, Moshe Rabeinu didn't do anything. You're right, he didn't do anything both by his passing, to earn his passing, didn't do anything for his birth. But the point is that the time of Rabbeinu's birth was a great revelation. The house was filled with light, etc. This means that the birth of Moshe Rabeinu on the 7th of Adar, affected the entire month. Like it says over there in the Megillah, it says the month that was transformed, which is also very strange. If you don't know this Gemara and you read the Megillah and you said it was the month that was transformed from mourning to joy. What month? It was a day. There was the day of Adar. They were supposed to kill out all the Jews, and the Jews had killed out all their enemies. Where's the pasuk say the month? The Torah Shebeksav is specifically expressing this idea that the entire month became transformed. And what caused that transformation? That's what the Gemara explains. The birth of Moshe caused that transformation. Why? We've learned about it in others that the Rebbe says Moshe Rabeinu is the Nasi of the whole Klal Yisrael, and therefore we know the power of a birthday. A birthday has a very powerful strength, and that powerful strength of a birthday gives us the whole Klal Yisrael, who we are connected with Moshe Rabeinu, this power of transformation to sadness to joy. The Indians and this idea, the latest Moshe b'Shiver ba'Adar al Kol HaChodesh, the effect of the birth of Moshe in the 7th of Adar over the entire month, Mizbate Gam b'Halacha. It even expresses itself. The Rebbe always wants to try to connect things to in halacha. That's not just something that's in the Agadata part, the spiritual part, but it actually has practical connotations that practically the month of Adar is something distinct and different. Kedivrei Yerushalmi, like the words of the Yerushalmi, Kol HaChodesh Kasher L'Kriyas HaMegillah, Kasher Ein Afsharos L'Kriyas HaMegillah B'Zman. The Gemara speaks about if a person in those days, you didn't have a Megillah everywhere. People lived scattered in different villages. Sometimes they weren't traveling. They couldn't hear the Megillah. What did they do if they weren't in the correct place? So the Gemara, the Babli Gemara speaks about certain dates that they could read from the 11th of the month through the 15th of the month. But the Yerushalmi speaks about that you could read the entire month. You could fulfill the mitzvah of the reading of the Megillah if it's not possible to read it on the correct date on the 14th of Adar. Upasak HaRamah LaHalacha, and the Ramah who we follow, ruled that way, LaHalacha v'hachinog, and this is the way the custom is to follow this under such stress. A person cannot read it on the correct date. I'm not going to talk about after Purim, that's a different thing. But before Purim, if a person knows he's not going to be able to read it, LaHalacha, a person could hear the Megillah beforehand. Also, again, ask your LOR for the exact way how this applies. The main thing is, why does the Yerushalmi say such a thing, that the entire month is kosher for the reading of Megillah? Because the entire month is infused with this type of energy of the birth of Moshe that makes the month a month of joy, and makes the month a month of happiness. And another practical application is what we've spoken about in other occasions, and also I think the previous time when we learned about Mishenichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha. As soon as Adar enters, we increase him. It doesn't say when comes an increase in Simcha. We increase in Simcha right away in the beginning of the Rebbe says in that sikh that we learned last week, every day we have to increase and add more and more. But the point is, again, the emphasis is that Moshe Rabbeinu's birth is so powerful that it's not just that it affects the day, the actual day that he was born, but it affects the entire birth month, that the entire birth month transforms every date in that month, even a different date in that month. The 7th of Adar, which was Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday, transformed the 13th of Adar, which was meant to be a terrible day for the Jewish people when they were supposed to be Chas v'Shalom destroyed. So the Rebbe says all of this needs to have a practical application. All matters of Torah are an everlasting lesson. It's not only a lesson and a directive, biyachad im nesinas koyach. Lesson it is also empowerment. When the Torah tells us to do something, when the Torah teaches us to do something, it is also empowering us and giving us the capability to do something. As it says, Hashem does not request and ask something from us only according to our own capabilities. Therefore, this is a lesson al kol yemei hashana kulam. It's a lesson for all the days of the entire year, because Torah is not just for a certain month or a certain day. Ubadgoshim yuchedes, and even more emphasis and special emphasis, b'yeser seis u'b'yeser ois, and so much more power and strength. Kashubo hayoyim hamyuchad b'shana sheba yiram urazeh, when that special that this event occurred. Ubinyanenu, and concerning what we are talking about, Shiva ba'Adar malamdeinu, the 7th of Adar teaches us, ba'oifen shel shturim, in a way of in a storm, in a way of a tumult, in a way of a full force type of way. Shakashar yeshnam inyanim bilti ritzuyim. When heaven forbid, there are unwanted matters. It is insufficient to nullify them entirely. There should not remain any type of mark and impression as if it didn't exist, because then it's like, what was the gain? A person went through this type of fear or possible difficulty of something negative occurring, and instead of that fear, things returned back to the status quo. What was the gain? What was the purpose? So the Rebbe says that's not the way it's supposed to be. But specifically, if there is a possibility and a fear of negativity, so just the opposite. The result of that has to be not just returning to the status quo, Adar, but just the opposite. One needs to transform that negative to such a degree that through that negative thing that's being transformed should be added an ascent, an elevation that's incomparable legamri. Bedugmas bitul gzeres Haman, similar to the nullification of the decree of Haman. That through it became added the Yom Tov of Purim in a way that they reached the highest, most level of joy, a joy that surpasses all other Yom Tovim, a joy of you don't even know, beyond understanding, beyond knowledge. And we said, like we said before, this lesson, this teaching from this matter is more under emphasis when it comes the unique day in the year, when this matter occurred the first time around, B'Shiva ba'Adar, on the 7th of Adar. The 7th of Adar teaches us this lesson even more so than the days of Purim themselves. How come? Since that was the day, the 7th of Adar is the cause that affected the nullification of the decree and the Yom Tov of Purim itself. Later, the birth of Moshe on the 7th of Adar. So therefore, this lesson is so much more applicable on the heels of and 7th of Adar than on Purim. Purim is only the result. The 7th of Adar is the cause and the purpose and the reason. Okay, like we've spoken about many times, that the lessons of the Torah matter, are connected to every single Yid, from your heads of tribes, till your wood choppers and those that are water carriers. This means to say, tribes need to fulfill these lessons, that when they are challenged by something, they need to turn that challenge into a joyous thing, into not just returning back to the status quo before the challenge. And you shouldn't think that he's a great and lofty individual, some very holy person, to be able to be in such that he's able to transform the darkness to a greater light. But even someone that's on the level of only a wood chopper and only a water carrier, person of seemingly low stature, can also transform and use their challenges not just as something to overcome and just return to where they were originally, but use their challenges as a means to go up to a higher place, to a more joyous place, and to finish with the well-known expression, if you have lemon, life gives you lemons, make Adar, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Really great.
Amen. Thank you.